The night was darker than usual. Heavy clouds covering the moon. Rain fell hard on the empty road, turning the ground muddy and slick. The sound of thunder echoed far in the distance, and the wind howled like a warning. A lone traveler walked down that road, his coat pulled tight against the storm. His boots splashed through puddles as he tried to reach the small cabin he called home. The storm made every shadow look alive, every broken branch, every fluttering leaf seemed to move with strange intention. The traveler kept his eyes low, focusing on the path, but then something caught his attention. At first, it was only a faint sound, softer than the rain, almost lost in the storm. He stopped, standing still in the middle of the road. There it was again. A small voice, trembling, weak, almost like a whisper. He turned his head, searching for the source. The voice was not calling words he could understand clearly, but it carried pain. It was coming from the ditch by the roadside. He stepped closer, squinting through the rain, and that was when he saw it, a sack wet and dirty, tossed like trash into the mud. It moved slightly, like something inside was alive, his breath caught in his throat. His first thought was of an animal, maybe a dog left to die, but then the sound came again. More clear this time, a tiny voice. Fragile and desperate, said a single word, "Mom." The traveler froze, his heart beat fast. He looked around. The road was empty, no houses nearby, no signs of people. Only him and that sack. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He slowly stepped into the ditch, his boots sinking into wet earth. His hands trembled as he reached for the sack. The voice came again, weaker. "Mom." It was not the voice of an animal, it was a child's voice. But something about it felt different. The tone was soft yet strange, as if not fully human. The traveler pulled the sack closer, his fingers struggling with the knot that tied it shut. Rain poured harder, soaking his hands, making it difficult to untie, but he did not stop. Something inside told him this moment was important. At last the knot gave way. He opened the sack slowly, cautious but driven by fear and curiosity. Inside he saw a small figure curled tightly. Her skin was pale but carried a faint glow. Her hair clung to her face, wet and tangled. Her eyes opened slightly, and they glowed faintly in the darkness. Unlike any human eyes, the traveler's breath caught. It was not a human child, it was something else, something alien. Yet she was small, helpless, and trembling. Her lips moved again, whispering, "Mom." As if reaching for comfort, his heart ached at the sound. The man looked around again, still no one in sight. Whoever left her here had walked away without care. Whoever abandoned her wanted her gone. Perhaps they wanted her to die. Perhaps they wanted her forgotten. The alien girl reached out with a small, trembling hand. Her fingers were thin, delicate, her skin glowing faintly under the rain. Without thinking, the man took her hand. It was warm despite the cold night. She clung to him tightly as if afraid he too might vanish. His thoughts raced. What was she? Where did she come from? Why was she left here in a sack? Questions filled his mind, but none mattered in that moment. All he knew was that a tiny life was crying out for help. He pulled her gently from the sack, holding her against his chest. She was lighter than he expected. Fragile, her breathing was shallow, and her body shook with weakness. The rain poured over both of them, but she seemed calmer in his arms, as if she finally found safety. The traveler stood there in the storm, holding a life that should not have been his responsibility. He looked down at her, her glowing eyes staring back with trust he did not deserve. A strange feeling grew inside him, fear mixed with protectiveness. The road stretched empty in both directions. He knew that once he took a step forward with her in his arms, his life would never be the same. He could leave her, walk away, and pretend he never heard the voice. He could tell himself it was not his problem, not his burden. But he knew he would never forgive himself. The little alien girl whispered once more, this time weaker. "Mom." The man tightened his hold on her. He felt her shivering body against his chest, and something inside him answered. Not with words, but with action. He stepped back onto the road, carrying her away from the ditch, away from the sack, and away from the death that waited for her there. The storm continued to rage, but inside his heart a fire had started. He did not know what lay ahead. He did not know who would come searching for her. He only knew one thing. He could not abandon her. Not tonight, not ever. And so the journey began. With a whisper in the rain, a glowing pair of eyes, and the word that shook him more than thunder, "Mom." The storm followed him as he carried the sack's fragile secret close to his chest. Rain hit the road like endless needles and the wind tried to push him back. But the man's steps grew faster, heavier, as if the weight in his arms was more important than the storm itself. Every heartbeat inside him echoed the same thought. This child should not be alone. When he reached the old cabin, a small wooden shelter at the edge of the woods, he pushed the door open with his shoulder. The hinges creaked, and the smell of damp wood greeted him. He set the small glowing figure down carefully on the worn-out bed. For a moment, silence filled the room, only broken by the sound of rain tapping the roof. The man lit a lantern, its soft flame casting shadows across the walls. Only then did he look closely at what he had saved. The child lay curled up, her small frame shaking. Her clothes were torn, dirty, and soaked. Her skin carried faint marks, bruises that told of suffering. Her hair shimmered slightly when the lantern light touched it. Silver strands mixed with pale glow. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly again. They were not like human eyes, they were deeper, as if stars had been trapped inside them. The man felt a chill, but not of fear, and it was awe. He had never seen anything so strange and yet so innocent. Water, he whispered to himself. He poured some from a jug into a cup and held it near her lips. At first she hesitated, her small hands trembling. But when she felt his patience, she leaned forward and drank. The water slid down her throat, and a weak sigh escaped her lips. Then her voice came again, soft and uncertain. "Mom." The man froze, his chest tightened. She looked at him as if searching for an answer. He was not her mother, not even her kind. Yet in her eyes, he was the only figure of safety she had left. He shook his head slowly, whispering, "No, I'm not." But the words died in his throat. She clung to his sleeve with fragile fingers, and his denial broke apart. He pulled a blanket over her small body, trying to give warmth. She shivered less, her breathing steadied. He sat beside the bed, staring at her. His mind was full of questions. Where did she come from? Why was she left to die? Who would abandon a child no matter what blood ran in her veins? Her lips moved again, broken words slipping out. Some were strange sounds, not human language. Some were whispers of pain. He leaned closer, trying to listen, trying to understand among the strange words. One thing became clear. She repeated the word safe again and again, as if she hoped it would become true. The man clenched his fists. His past haunted him. The night when he could not save the one he loved, he had promised himself never again. Now this strange child had appeared, left in the dirt like garbage. And though she was not his, though she was alien, he felt the same promise burning inside him. The child drifted into uneasy sleep, her small chest rising and falling under the blanket. The faint glow from her skin made the room brighter than the lantern. He watched her carefully, unable to turn away. He knew what he saw tonight would change his life forever. As he sat in silence, a sound echoed outside the cabin, faint but sharp. The snap of a twig under pressure, his heart skipped. He put out the lantern quickly. The room fell dark except for the girl's faint glow. He stepped to the window, peering into the stormy night. Shadows moved between the trees, too steady to be from the wind. Shapes passed by, tall and thin, carrying lights that flickered unnaturally. His breath caught. He realized he was not alone. Whoever had left her in that sack might be searching. He stepped back from the window. His heart pounding, he looked at the child and still sleeping, still glowing faintly. If those shadows were after her, if they found her here, he would lose her. The same helpless feeling from his past rushed back, but this time he swore he would not let it happen. He grabbed an old rifle from above the fireplace. His hands steady though his heart raced, he had no plan. No idea who these shadows were or what they wanted, but he knew one thing. The girl was his responsibility now. The night grew colder, the storm outside roaring louder, but inside the cabin silence ruled. He sat near the bed, rifle in hand, watching the door. The girl stirred in her sleep, whispering again, "Mom." He looked at her and something inside him shifted. He was not her blood, not her kind, but in this moment, he was her only protector. He would not run. He would not abandon her. He whispered back softly, "You're safe now," though his eyes never left the door. Outside, the shadows paused as if they could sense her glow, and the man tightened his grip, knowing the true danger had only begun. The cabin was silent, but the man's heart was not. His heartbeat thudded loud in his chest, every sound outside making it race faster. He sat on the chair by the bed, the old rifle resting across his knees. His eyes kept shifting from the door to the glowing child curled under the blanket. She slept uneasily, murmuring broken words, but she clung to the edge of his sleeve even in sleep. He knew he was standing at a line. One step could change his life forever. He could leave her, walk away in the morning, pretend this night never happened, or he could choose the harder road, keeping her safe, protecting her even if it meant danger. The storm outside began to ease, the rain slowing into soft taps, but the forest still carried movement. He could feel it, eyes searching in the dark. Whoever abandoned her might return. Whoever hunted her might already know where she was. The man closed his eyes for a moment. Memories flooded him. He remembered another night years ago when someone he loved had begged him for help, and he had been too late. That loss had hollowed him, leaving him wandering roads, never staying too long in one place, never opening his heart again. And now fate had thrown this fragile alien child into his arms. He opened his eyes and looked at her again. Her small chest rose and fell, her glowing skin faintly lighting the blanket. She was helpless, weak, and yet she had called out to him with one word. Mom. A word that broke through every wall he had built inside. His hands tightened on the rifle. He whispered to himself, "If I walk away now, I'll be no better than the ones who left her to die." The girl stirred, half awake, her glowing eyes blinking weakly. She looked at him and whispered, "Safe." The word was soft, fragile, but it struck him like thunder. She trusted him. Without reason, without proof. She had chosen him already. Now it was his turn to decide. He set the rifle aside and moved closer, placing a rough hand gently on her small shoulder. "I don't know what you are," he said softly, "but you're not alone anymore." She blinked, her eyes wet, and she whispered the same word again, "Safe," before slipping back into sleep. The man sat back, his decision heavy but clear. He would protect her. He did not know from who. He did not know how long, but he could not walk away. Hours passed. The storm outside breaking into calm. Dawn's first light crept through the cracks in the shutters. The man stood, stretched his tired limbs, and checked his supplies, a few old cans of food, some bread, water, a small stove, and the rifle with only a handful of bullets, not enough for a long fight, but enough to start moving if needed. The girl woke slowly, her glowing eyes adjusting to the faint light of morning. She sat up, looking around the cabin with cautious eyes. Her small hands clutched the blanket. She whispered again, "Mom." The man knelt beside her, shaking his head with a soft smile. "Not your mom, little one, but I'll keep you safe." She tilted her head, as if trying to understand, then reached her hand toward his face. Her fingers brushed his cheek lightly. Almost in recognition, his heart ached at the touch. She was not human, that much was clear. Her skin shimmered faintly. Her voice carried strange tones, her words were broken. Sometimes human, sometimes not, but she was a child. Lost and unwanted, and that was enough. The man wrapped her in his old coat, lifting her gently into his arms again. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "It's not safe." He glanced at the rifle near the door, then back at her. She leaned her head against his chest, small and trusting, as if she already knew the world was against her. Before stepping outside, he paused, his eyes fixed on the forest beyond. Shadows still lingered between the trees. Though they kept their distance, whoever they were, they had not given up. He gripped the rifle and whispered under his breath, "If they want her, they'll have to go through me." The road stretched long and lonely as he walked. The girl held close under his coat. The rising sun painted the wet ground with light, but the man felt no peace. He knew the choice he made last night would follow him forever. There was no turning back, no undoing it. The girl whispered against his chest, "Safe," as if reminding him of his promise. He nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "Yes, you're safe," he said, though deep down he knew safety would not come easily. Behind them, in the distance, the faint glow of strange lights moved through the trees. The hunt had begun, and so the man carried her forward, each step heavy with danger, but also with a resolve stronger than ever before. His choice was made, his path was clear, and though the world might call him a fool, he would prove what humanity truly meant. Not strength, not power, but compassion. The morning sun stretched across the damp road, making the puddles shimmer like glass. The man walked carefully, his arms steady as he carried the small alien girl under his coat. Her faint glow was hidden, but he could feel her warmth through the fabric. Each step forward was a reminder of his choice. He had taken her in, and now she was his responsibility by midday. He reached an abandoned barn at the edge of a field. Its roof sagged and the doors leaned to one side. But it was shelter. He pushed the doors open with his shoulder, dust and hay scent filling the air. Inside, the barn was quiet, broken beams letting in slices of sunlight. He laid her gently on a pile of dry hay. The girl blinked, her glowing eyes open, looking around with fear and curiosity. Her small hands clutched the coat tightly as if she was afraid he would vanish. He crouched down, giving a faint smile. "It's all right," he said softly. "We'll rest here a while." She tilted her head, studying him. Her lips moved, and after a long pause she whispered, "Safe?" The word was weak, but it carried hope. He nodded slowly. "Yes, safe," he replied. She relaxed a little, pulling the coat around her like a shield. He searched his bag, finding a piece of bread and a can of beans. Not much, but enough for two. He heated the food over a small flame, the smell filling the barn. The girl's eyes followed his every move. Wide with hunger and caution, he handed her the bread first. She held it with trembling fingers, sniffed it, then took a small bite. For a moment she chewed slowly, unsure. Then, her lips curved into the faintest smile. It was the first sign of comfort he had seen on her face. Something inside him stirred. A small warmth he thought he had lost long ago. He ate beside her, sharing quietly. Each time she looked at him, she seemed to study his face, as if trying to understand why he was helping her. He didn't have the answer himself. All he knew was that leaving her behind had never been an option. After the meal, she pointed at his chest, then touched her own small chest. "Mom?" she asked softly. He shook his head gently. "No, not Mom," he said, tapping his chest. "Human?" Then he pointed at her. "You." She blinked. Tilting her head, her lips moved, but no clear word came. She tried again, struggling, until at last she whispered something close to her name. It was strange, full of sounds his tongue could not shape, but he nodded anyway, repeating the closest version he could. She gave a small approving hum, as if pleased he had tried. The connection grew in small ways. She watched his hands as he worked, mimicked his gestures, and even copied some words. When he said water, she repeated softly, her voice fragile but eager to learn. He realized she was not only surviving, she was adapting. The afternoon light faded into evening. The man leaned against a wooden beam, exhaustion pressing on him. The girl curled up beside him, her small body glowing faintly in the dim barn. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned closer, resting her head against his arm. He stiffened at first, unused to closeness, but he let her stay. Her breathing softened, and soon she drifted into sleep. He looked down at her, studying the strange lines of her face, so different from humans, yet holding the same innocence. He felt the weight of the rifle beside him, the reminder of the danger outside. Shadows still hunted, and sooner or later, they would catch up, but here in this small moment there was peace. The connection between them was fragile, like a thread of light, yet it was strong enough to push back the darkness that surrounded them. The night came quietly. The man kept watch, his eyes scanning the cracks of the barn. He thought about the choice he had made, how a single whisper had changed his path. And as the girl stirred in her sleep, whispering again, "Safe," he knew he could not let her down. Just before dawn, she woke suddenly, her glowing eyes wide. She pointed toward the door, trembling. The man grabbed the rifle quickly, his heart racing through the gaps of the wood. Faint lights flickered in the distance. The pursuers had not given up. They were still searching, moving closer with every hour. The girl pressed against him, whispering a word in her broken language. He did not understand, but he understood the fear in her eyes. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "You're not alone," he whispered. "I'll keep you safe." And for the first time, as the light of morning touched the horizon, she looked up at him, not with fear, not with confusion, but with trust. A trust that bound them together. Stronger than the storm, stronger than the hunt, stronger than the shadows outside. The morning sky was pale gray, a thin mist stretching across the fields. The man stood at the doorway of the barn. His rifle in hand, his eyes searched the horizon. And though the land looked empty, he felt the weight of unseen eyes. He knew the shadows from last night had not vanished. They were waiting, watching behind him. The alien girl sat on the hay, her small frame wrapped in his coat. Her glowing eyes followed him nervously. She seemed to sense the danger too. Every time a crow cried in the distance or a branch cracked under the wind, She flinched. The man turned back and gave her a faint nod. "It's all right," he whispered. Though he did not believe it, the day passed slowly. Hours felt heavy as he listened for footsteps. His supplies were nearly gone. He knew they could not stay in the barn much longer, but moving now might lead them straight into danger. He felt trapped, caught between safety and risk. By afternoon, the silence broke. A faint hum filled the air, low and steady, not from nature. The man froze, gripping the rifle tighter. The girl's eyes widened. She whispered a sound in her own language, a sound filled with fear. Through the cracks of the barn's wall, the man saw it, strange lights moving in the mist. Not lanterns, not torches, but sharp beams of blue. They swept across the field, searching carefully. He heard metallic clicks, heavy footsteps, and voices speaking in tones he could not understand. The hunters had arrived. The man's breath grew shallow. He turned to the girl. She clutched the coat tighter. Trembling, he crouched beside her, pressing a finger to his lips. "Quiet," he whispered. She nodded weakly, her glowing eyes wide with terror. The barn filled with shadows as the lights passed closer. A beam of blue light slid across the cracks, cutting through the dust. The man pulled the girl against him, keeping her still. His heart pounded so loud he feared they would hear it. Outside, footsteps circled, heavy and deliberate. A voice barked in that strange language. Another answered. The sound of something metallic scraping across the ground made the girl whimper softly. The man held her tighter, whispering gently, "Shh, you're safe." Though his throat was dry with fear, minutes stretched like hours. He felt the hunters lingering, inspecting. One of them stepped close, so close that the barn door creaked under their touch. The man raised the rifle, his finger near the trigger, his body tense, ready to fight. But the door never opened after a long silence. The footsteps moved again, farther this time. The man let out a slow breath, sweat dripping down his face. He lowered the rifle but kept it in his grip. The girl's small hands clung to his arm. Trembling, he stroked her hair gently. "We can't stay," he whispered. "They'll be back." That night, the barn was no longer safe. The man packed what little food remained, strapped the rifle across his back, and lifted the girl into his arms again. She leaned against his chest, whispering a single word. "Safe." He nodded, though danger pressed against every step he took. They left through the rear. Slipping into the woods, the moon rose, pale and broken by clouds. The forest swallowed them with its silence, but behind them, faint glows of blue light moved through the mist. The hunters had not given up. For hours they moved quietly. The man guided them through thick trees, stepping carefully to leave no trail. The girl, though weak, stayed silent, her trust in him unshaken. Every time she looked at him, her eyes asked the same question, "Will you protect me?" And his steady steps gave her the answer at last. They found a small hollow under a rocky cliff. Hidden by vines and shadows, the man settled there, laying the girl down gently as she curled close, her glow dimming as she drifted into exhausted sleep. He sat near the entrance, rifle across his knees. Watching the forest, hours passed. Then the silence broke again. Voices echoed faintly. Hunters passed near the trees, beams of light scanning. One stopped. Looking toward the cliff, the man's body tensed, his finger brushing the rifle's trigger. But the light moved away. Footsteps fading into distance, he exhaled slowly. His mind screamed with questions. Why were they after her? Why abandon her in a sack only to hunt her again? What was she to them? His eyes drifted to the sleeping girl, her fragile form glowing softly. He did not know the answers, but he knew the hunters would not stop. The night stretched long. The forest breathed with shadows. The man stayed awake, his resolve harder than steel. If they came for her again, he would fight. He had made his choice, and in the quiet moments, he looked down at the girl and realized something deeper. She had given him a reason to live again. She was not his blood, not his kind. Yet she had filled the hollow inside him with fragile hope. Outside, the hunters prowled, their search tightening, but inside the hollow, man and child formed a bond stronger than fear, stronger than darkness, stronger even than the hunt itself. The hollow under the rocky cliff was silent. The man sat near the entrance, the rifle across his knees. His eyes scanned the forest while the alien girl slept curled against the cold stone. Her faint glow painted the shadows with soft silver light. It was beautiful and haunting at the same time. But he knew that glow could betray them. For hours he listened. Every sound became sharper. The wind moving through leaves, the crack of branches, the distant call of strange creatures. Then came the sound he feared most, heavy footsteps pressing against the ground. Steady, deliberate. The hunters were closing in. He tightened his grip on the rifle. His body tense, his breath shallow. He looked back at the child. Her glowing eyes opened slowly. She sensed it too. Her small hand reached for him. "Safe," she whispered weakly. Her voice broke, but her trust did not. The man felt a surge of strength. He had run far enough. Hiding would not last forever. The hunters would never stop. If he wanted her to live, he would have to stand. The voices outside grew louder, harsh tones in a language he could not understand. Blue beams of light cut across the trees, closer, closer. One beam brushed the vines that hid the hollow. The man pulled the child close, whispering, "Stay behind me." Her small body clung to his arm. Trembling, the first hunter stepped into view. Tall, armored, its face hidden behind a mask of glass. The glow of its weapon lit the night. Behind it came two more. Their movements were precise. Their search methodical. The man raised the rifle. Aiming steadily, the hunters paused. One turned its head. The man fired. The crack of the shot echoed through the forest. The nearest hunter staggered back, sparks flying from its armor. The others shouted in their strange tongue, weapons lifting. Blue light exploded against the rocks, scorching the air. The man ducked. Pulling the girl with him, he fired again. The shot tearing through the mist, one hunter fell, its body jerking before going still. The others pressed forward, relentless. The girl cried out, her glow flaring brighter. She clutched the man's coat, whispering words in her broken tongue, words filled with desperation. For a moment the hunters hesitated, their masked faces turning toward her. She was the target, he realized it then. They were not here for him. They were here for her alone. "Over my dead body," the man muttered, his hand steady. He fired again, hitting another hunter. But his rifle clicked empty. "No more bullets," he cursed under his breath. Throwing the rifle aside, the last hunter advanced, weapon raised. The man grabbed a broken branch from the ground. Rough and heavy, it was no match against their weapons. But he charged forward anyway, his voice roared through the forest. Raw with defiance, the hunter struck, blue light searing past him. He swung the branch with all his strength, smashing into the hunter's arm. Sparks flew, the weapon fell. The hunter staggered back. The man tackled it. They hit the ground hard. He punched, fought, clawed. Refusing to stop, his body screamed with pain, but his spirit burned hotter. Behind him, the girl's glow brightened until it filled the hollow like a star. Then, something extraordinary happened. The girl lifted her hands. Her small voice sang in broken words. The air trembled. The ground pulsed with strange energy. The hunter froze, its body locked in place as if invisible chains bound it. The man stumbled back, staring in disbelief. The girl's eyes blazed with light, her voice grew stronger. Her power wrapped around the hunter like waves of fire and wind. The mask cracked, the body collapsed to the ground, silent. The forest fell still. Only the sound of the man's ragged breathing filled the night. He turned to the girl, she swayed weakly, her glow dimming again. He caught her before she fell, cradling her close. She whispered faintly, "Safe," and closed her eyes. The man looked at the fallen hunters. His hands trembled, his body ached, but inside he felt a fire stronger than pain. He had stood against them, he had survived. But more than that, he had seen her power. A glimpse of something greater than he could understand. He carried her back into the hollow. Laying her gently on the hay, she breathed slowly, her small chest rising and falling. He brushed her hair back, whispering, "You're safe. Little one, you're safe, outside." The night grew silent again. The hunters were gone. But he knew more would come, yet in his heart there was no fear, only resolve. Humanity was not measured by weapons or strength. It was measured by the choice to protect the helpless, even against impossible odds, and tonight he had chosen well. The forest was quiet after the battle. The broken bodies of the hunters lay scattered among the trees, blue sparks fading slowly into the soil. The night had swallowed the noise. Leaving only silence, the man sat inside the hollow. The alien girl resting against his chest, her glow had dimmed to a faint shimmer. But her breathing was steady. He could feel her heartbeat. Fragile yet alive, exhaustion pulled at him. Every muscle in his body burned, his hands shook. But when he looked down at her face, he found strength again. She had called him safe, and she had trusted him even when he had nothing left. That trust was worth more than his own life. Dawn arrived slowly. The gray mist lifted, golden light pouring across the trees. The man stepped out of the hollow with the girl in his arms. The world seemed new, fresh after the storm of violence. Birds sang carefully as if testing the silence. The man looked at the horizon and whispered, "We move forward now." He carried her along the road until they reached a small river. The water glistened, clear and cold. He washed the blood from his hands, letting the current carry it away. The girl watched with wide eyes, her reflection shimmering in the water. She reached out, touching the surface with her small fingers, ripples breaking her glowing image. For the first time, she gave a soft laugh, faint but pure. The sound struck him harder than any bullet. It was hope. He knelt beside her, smiling faintly. "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. She tilted her head, repeating one word she had learned well. "Safe," he nodded. "Yes, safe." As they moved again, he thought about what lay ahead. The hunters were gone for now, but more would come. Her glow made her impossible to hide for long. He knew that someday others would arrive, maybe not hunters, maybe her own kind. And when that time came, he would face it, but for now, she was his to protect, his to guide. By midday, they reached an abandoned village. Wooden houses stood silent, roofs broken, doors hanging loose. Time had emptied this place long ago. The man checked carefully, no signs of danger. He led her into one of the houses. The roof still held, the fireplace was strong. He set her down on a chair, and for the first time since finding her, he let himself breathe fully. He lit a fire, warmth spreading across the room. The girl sat close, her glow mingling with the flames. She looked around with cautious wonder. Her fingers brushed the table, the walls as if learning the world again. She whispered broken words in her strange tongue, pointing at things. The man named them slowly in his own language. She listened, repeated, sometimes clumsy, sometimes perfect. It became their game, learning, teaching, connecting. Every word she learned made her smile a little more. Every smile broke through the walls around his heart. That night, as the fire crackled, she curled beside him, whispering softly, "Safe." "Dad." The man froze, his eyes widened. She had spoken the word clearly, no mistake, no confusion. She had called him Dad. Tears filled his eyes, something he had not felt in years. He placed a hand on her small shoulder. "Yes," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm here. I'm Dad now." She smiled faintly, her eyes closing as she drifted into sleep. The man sat in silence, staring into the fire. He realized his life was no longer empty. The road ahead was dangerous, uncertain, but he was no longer walking it alone. He had someone who needed him, someone who gave his life meaning again. Days turned into weeks. The abandoned village became their shelter. The man repaired roofs, hunted for food, and built a small safe place for her to grow. The girl learned faster each day. Her words grew clearer, her laughter brighter. She was no longer the weak child in a sack. She was becoming strong, alive and full of hope. Sometimes at night, he saw strange lights far in the distance. He knew the hunters were still out there, searching. But each time he looked at the girl asleep by the fire, he found courage. If they came again, he would stand. He had faced them once, he would face them again, but deep inside, he began to believe something more. Maybe one day she would not need hiding. Maybe one day, when the universe learned the truth of humanity, they would not see humans as enemies but as protectors, as people who stood when no one else would. And maybe, just maybe, this child would be the bridge. Her bond with him, alien and human, would be proof of something greater than fear. The man closed his eyes, whispering a final promise into the night. "As long as I breathe, you will never be alone." The fire glowed. The stars shone above, and in that forgotten village, under broken roofs and endless skies, a new family began, a human and an alien child, bound not by blood but by compassion, courage, and trust. A new beginning,